Carl Jung said something that most men will never understand: the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The man who talks the least in the room? He already has. And that silence, that stillness, is not weakness. It's the most dangerous thing you've never been taught to recognize. Silence is not absence, it's accumulated power. Abraham Lincoln was notorious for saying almost nothing in meetings. His cabinet members would debate, argue, fill the room with noise. Lincoln sat. He listened. Then, when he spoke, everyone stopped because they knew the words were chosen. Not performance. Not reaction. Conclusion. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in private, never meant to be published. The most powerful man in the Roman Empire journaled alone. That silence was where his authority was forged. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself by withdrawing from the noise of the collective. When you stop performing for others, your internal signal gets louder. Your instincts sharpen. You stop reacting and start responding. The silent man isn't disengaged. He's processing at a depth most people never reach because they filled every gap with talking. Men who speak less are trusted more, and science backs it. Think about the last time someone in a meeting wouldn't stop talking. Did you trust them more? Now think about the guy who only spoke twice, but both times nailed it. That's not an accident. Theodore Roosevelt's close advisors noted that he would often sit through entire strategy sessions without speaking, then issue one precise directive that cut through everything. His silence built anticipation. His words carried weight because they were rationed. Schopenhauer wrote that noise is the most impertinent of all interruptions. It breaks not just our thoughts but our projection of competence. When you speak constantly, you reveal your uncertainty in real time. Every filler word, every hedge, every repeated point signals that you're thinking out loud rather than delivering conclusions. Silence says, I already thought about this. You're just getting the output. The silent man controls the emotional temperature of every room he enters. Viktor Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps by mastering something extraordinary: the gap between stimulus and response. Guards would humiliate him. He would not react. Not because he was passive, but because he understood that his internal world was the one territory they could never occupy. That refusal to react drove his captors into frustration. The man who won't escalate forces others to confront their own volatility. You've seen this in your own life: the person who stays calm in a conflict doesn't lose. They make everyone else look unhinged. Jung's concept of the shadow explains why reactive men are so predictable. Their unprocessed anger, fear, and insecurity lives just beneath the surface, and anyone who knows how to poke it controls them completely. The silent man has done the shadow work. He knows his triggers. He's met the monster in the basement and made peace with it. That's not detachment. That's mastery. And it makes him unmanipulable. Silence builds identity, talking disperses it. Kierkegaard called it the crowd, the force that pulls men away from their singular self and into borrowed opinions, reflected identities, performance for approval. He wrote, the most common form of despair is not being who you are. The man who talks constantly is often searching for himself and the reactions of others. Every story he tells is a test. Do you see me? Do I matter? The man who is comfortable in silence has already answered those questions and stopped needing the validation loop. When you speak, you externalize your thinking, and in doing so, you hand others the power to reshape it. Silence keeps your perspective intact long enough to actually form convictions. Nietzsche wrote that the higher man does not seek followers, he seeks himself. The silent man isn't antisocial. He's sovereign. He engages with the world from a fixed internal point, not a moving one. That's why he's hard to manipulate, hard to destabilize, and impossible to truly know unless he chooses to let you in. The world mistakes silence for submission, and that's your advantage. Machiavelli's greatest insight in The Prince wasn't about cruelty, it was about perception management. He wrote that men judge by appearances far more than by reality. The quiet man is systematically underestimated. In every workplace, every social circle, every negotiation, the loudest voice gets the most attention but rarely the most respect. Camus' assault, the stranger, unnerved everyone around him precisely because they could not read him. They filled in the blanks with their own fears. That projection? It's power you didn't even have to earn. When people can't read you, they project onto you. They assume competence, depth, danger, whatever their own psychology conjures. The silent man lets the room do the work. He doesn't explain himself. He doesn't justify. He doesn't overshare. And in a culture addicted to oversharing, where every man is broadcasting his inner life on social media in real time, the man who says nothing becomes genuinely mysterious. Mystery creates gravity. Gravity pulls. Here's what you take from this. First, silence is where your identity consolidates. Every time you resist filling a gap with noise, you keep more of yourself. Second, the man who doesn't react controls the room. Your stillness forces others to confront their own instability. That's not passivity, that's leverage. Third, the world underestimates quiet men by design. Let them. Jung spent his entire career arguing that the path to power was inward, not outward. The integrated man, the one who's done the work, faced the shadow, stopped performing, doesn't need to announce himself. The room already knows. If this landed for you, if some part of you recognized this as something you already knew but couldn't articulate, subscribe. We drop one every Tuesday and Friday. No noise. Just the stuff that actually changes how you see yourself and the world.